Welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. I'm your host Dan, aka smAsho. Looking at the sun here in 304 angstroms to see massive quantity of filaments all around the solar limb. We saw a Farside coronal mass ejection. We'll be talking about possible Sunspot 2815, Monocerotis, and a meteorology segment all coming at you on the Daily Space Weather. Let's go out to Lagrange point 5 as we saw a Farside coronal mass ejection. Here's the view from stereo A. And you can see this coronal mass ejection propagating on the far side of the sun. For you new viewers out there, thanks for tuning in. The Earth would be off in this direction from the perspective of stereo A. Again, that spacecraft is located at Lagrangian point 5. And we'll show you another view of that on the LASCO C3 momentarily. First, the southern hemisphere. And we are expecting this active region up here to get named. I believe it's Sunspot 2815. We've been documenting umbrae since yesterday on that one. I think it's well over the 12-hour barrier required to receive a name. Here is the northern hemisphere. And you can see filaments up there as well. Here's a different wavelength, 171 angstroms, ionized iron. And we'll continue on here. Here's a diagram of the solar system. And we are seeing Mercury and Venus now on the LASCO C3. Here's where stuff is now. We hope all you reverse werewolves had a great new moon. There's where things will be in a week. Mercury moving into an oppositional position. Here's a star chart. Today the sun will be passing through Sagittarius, Scorpius, Libra, Virgo, and setting in Leo. If you're up before dawn, you may see Saturn and Jupiter rising ahead of the sun. If you've got clear skies and a view of the ecliptic, the radio flux, 2800 megahertz radio flux, otherwise known as the 10.7, is at only 73 solar flux units. And here's a one-year chart. This black line here is the 10.7 centimeter radio flux. The radio outputs from the upper chromosphere and lower corona. The lower red line down here is the sunspot number. Pretty weak levels of solar activity despite all the coronal mass ejections we've been talking about recently. Or should I say both the coronal mass ejections. Anyway, here's the view from LASCO C3, and you can see at the end of the video that coronal mass ejection showing up there toward the upper left of the coronagraph obscurement disk. That's nowhere near the Earth, folks. That's on the opposite side of the sun, and you can see Venus on the left right here and Mercury moving in right over here on that view from the LASCO C3, which is located at Lagrangian point 1, if you're wondering where that is. Lagrangian point 1 is right there. All right, and let's get into some more data here. You're wondering what volcanoes are erupting? I certainly am. And so we're going to cover it via volcanodiscovery.com's Volcanoes Today page. What's erupting? Suwanosejima is erupting. That's located in the Ryukyu Islands near Japan. 6,000-foot ash plume there. Mount Raong now back on the list as it explodes. 8,000-foot ash plume there. Fuego in Guatemala. 16,000-foot plume above it as it explodes. Revenador, 15,000-foot plume in Ecuador as it explodes. Sabancaya were unable to detect, perhaps cloudy conditions on the satellite imagery. And Soufrière on the island of Saint-Vincent, exploding 10,000-foot ash plume And sorry, folks, you can't evacuate unless you've gotten vaccinated. A reminder to not pole vault the caldera. Whatever you do, folks, don't pole vault the caldera. We prefer safety first, and we don't want to see you in a position like this, attempting to pole vault the caldera. It could be unhealthful, and we need the views on YouTube. Seriously, though, smAshomash.com. Here are the earthquakes of the past 24. No major quakes over the past 24 hours, and we're going to scroll up the list here. There was a 5.0 in the Kermadec Islands region there, north-northeast of New Zealand, in the Kermadec Trench. A deep quake at Argentina, as well as a deep quake at also Argentina. So 2 deep quakes happening there, only 10 minutes apart. That happening at 14:42 and 14:52 Universal Time yesterday. And then an hour later, a deep quake at Bolivia. That one at a deeper depth. Those are all in the 4 magnitude range, although the first one was a 4.9. Fiji also saw a deep quake over 600 kilometers depth there. Indonesia saw a deep quake. So quite a few deep quakes happening here. Another deep quake in Indonesia, one of the largest of the past 24, as well as this Japan region quake. Those happening about 40 minutes apart, both in a 5.2 magnitude. Really the 2 largest quakes of the past 24 hours. Continuing on to more solar data. No significant solar flares, although we saw the X-ray profile uptick a little bit there. That's a 3-day chart from the GOES 16. No proton strikes, no coronal mass ejections arriving yet. And here's the GOES magnetometer over the past 3 days. Another measurement from the GOES 16. Nothing to report on there. And let's look at the magnetic environment in terms of the heliospheric current sheet. This is part of the National Sunspot Observatory, by the way. This data is gathered from 51 ground-based magnetometers, as well as magnetometers on stereo A at Lagrange point 5 and stereo B at Lagrange point 4. And you can see the Earth is solidly in a South Pole current sheet shown here in red. No North Pole current sheet showing up anytime soon. Here's another view, the line of sight coronal hole plot, and you can see this large South Pole-oriented coronal hole showing up. We can expect a high-speed coronal hole wind stream from that in about 5 days. So something that's going to affect the geospace finally showing up here. Here's a line of sight ecliptic plane field plot. And you can see how south-oriented the current sheet that the Earth lies in is. That blue line stretching well up into the northern hemisphere there, as South Pole magnetism rules the earthly portion of the solar system. Next, we're looking at filaments and sunspot groups. This area down here is the portion to keep an eye on. And when I say eye on, well, it's going to be named a sunspot, I think. I would note a bunch of filaments all over the limbs of the sun right now. Likelihood of coronal mass ejections, as I said earlier, is still quite high. Here is the KP index, a measurement of global geomagnetism, currently at 1. Next, we'll take a look at the real-time solar wind, which is pretty uneventful as well. Solar wind density current conditions are just under 6 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed 352 kilometers per second. And we are expecting a coronal mass ejection strike midway through the day tomorrow. And the main signature you're going to be able to see for the coronal mass ejection strike is a change in the temperature. So that's going to be the best signal. We also expect to see some shifts in the phi angle, as well as some perhaps an odd shifting of the solar wind speed when that coronal mass ejection arrives. We talked about it in previous videos. Here's 4 hours of data of the geospace. You're looking at magnetohydrodynamic pressure in nanopascals as modeled by the Space Weather Modeling Framework. Again, fairly steady pressure here. No real surprises there, especially with such a consistent solar wind speed and density over the past 4 hours. Next, we'll look at geospace delta B, ground magnetic perturbations. And since we've got 2 north poles and the South Pole has left the Antarctic continent entirely and is someplace south of Australia, we show this daily. Geospace delta B would be changes to the Earth's B field, and the B field is the field that goes through the magnet, this magnet being Earth. Did you know we have a Discord channel? You can find a permanent link to that at smashomash.com. Check out our Discord channel, discord.com/channels/smashomash. And again, you can find a permanent invite link at smashomash.com. Thanks to our Twitch viewers. And while we are not streaming live, we will go live for today's meteorology segment. Thanks to our YouTube viewers. Did you check our other playlists on YouTube as well? youtube.com/smashomash/playlists. Check our links, etc. Thanks everybody who tunes in on YouTube. Most of our content is indeed on YouTube. And if you're only watching it someplace else, well, you're missing a whole bunch of the content, probably like 60 or 70%. Thanks to our BitChute subscribers as well. Let's do a cosmology segment. Today's will be pretty short, and the first thing we're going to talk about is the Mars Ingenuity helicopter. It's tested its blades. So here's the imagery from the Perseverance rover of the Mars helicopter, the Ingenuity helicopter, checking out its blades at a slow rotation rate of 50 rotations per minute. The launch of this has been postponed until Wednesday the 14th. So we'll be looking forward to that. And today we're not going to talk about anything random at all. We're going to talk about Monocerotis. Monocerotis, a rare type of stellar binary. So this features 2 stars. One star about 100 times the sun's diameter, but believed to be about the same mass as the sun, and a smaller companion also believed to be about the same mass. It's a blue dwarf, and you can see the massive difference in size here. As these stars orbit each other, they are inside of a massive dust of gas. And this is a great animation here of what's going on in there. And this creates a special kind of variable star system, specifically named for this system, actually. And they're showing you there the graph of the brightness. You can see the way the brightness is going up and down there over time. And it's not just because of obscurement by the stars themselves, but obscurement behind portions of this disk. So this disk that they're rotating inside of is like a hollow cylinder, and their outputs are probably supplying the material for that hollow cylinder. Here's a good infographic showing you the distances and so on. And feel free to pause that if you need to. And here are some views of Monocerotis. Here it is on the, I don't know what that is. Here's the UMass in any case. Here's infrared light. And I wanted to also note the extremely bright hydrogen alpha signature. So here it is on the VTSS hydrogen alpha imagery. And you can see how bright it is in hydrogen output. Probably not a real surprise to our regular viewers. And let's see if it shows up also on the Finkbeiner. It's not going to show up on the Finkbeiner, but it indeed does show up on the XMM Newton. There are the X-ray signatures of it. Monocerotis, the fairly weird binary system. And let's look at it on Pan-STARRS. It's very high resolution imagery on Pan-STARRS. And that's giving you some insight into the shape of that obscuration disk. It's Monocerotis, today's cosmology segment. Let's get back to regularly scheduled daily space weather. And the next thing is the electron flux. So here's a 1-year chart of the electron flux, and we're at very low levels as we continue to see very low levels of electron flux, which will continue until after the incoming coronal hole wind stream. We may see a little uptick following the coronal mass ejection strike, but it should be pretty minor. Anyway, there's a 3-day chart as measured by the GOES 16. Here is the forecast model. The green boxes are the forecast, and the yellow diamonds are the observation. And here is a diagram of the Van Allen belts. Feel free to pause that as well. Here's a visualization of the total electron content forecast. And we're seeing very low levels here, as you can see on the graph. On the, not the graph, the, what do you call it? It's a visualization. And we see some anomalies around the equator at noontime as well. Well, not really at noontime, more like at midnight time. You can see high levels of electron flux here despite it being nighttime there. So you see the most electron flux, you see the most GPS errors happening around the equator at noontime, but during times of low electron flux, we see more anomalies at nighttime as the Van Allen belts get less organized as a result of the low levels of electron flux. Here's another diagram of the atmosphere showing you things like the troposphere where all your weather occurs, as well as this red F, which is the F ionosphere layer located at about 300 kilometers altitude. And here is the visualization of the ionosphere as reported by the Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. And we have noted some anomalies in the ionosphere. Keep in mind the resolution's low here, folks. It's only 1 megahertz resolution. Each one of those shells represents 1 megahertz difference in vibrational frequency. Millions of vibrations per second. Basically, it's the bottom of the the inner Van Allen belt. So that's where the ionosphere is located. Again, this is about 300 kilometers of altitude. And here's the latest image coming in at 7:45 Universal Time. And let's bring Twitch. Welcome to our Twitch viewers. It's a meteorology segment. And I'm your host, Dan, a.k.a. smAsho, if you weren't aware. Here at the Smash News Network, we cover lots of different topics, meteorology being one of them. And I would note there could be a Church of Moloch meeting happening at perhaps Iceland, as we see a 666 forming here in the North Atlantic. You can see these 3 different rotating systems here, making for a satanic triangle of 666s. Perhaps a gateway to hell has opened at Iceland, at Fagradalsfjall. In any case, here are the surface winds, and we've got some strong winds off of the east coast of southern South America as well here. Anyway, here are the jet streams of the Western world. Here are the jet streams of the Eastern world. Quite chaotic jet stream flows there in the southern hemisphere. And here are the surface winds since we showed you the west. Here are the east. And a very strong system here south of Australia, close to the south geomagnetic pole, I would note. Let's see if we can get a wind speed. At least 60 mile per hour winds down there. Let's get a little closer, see if we can get an even higher reading here. There's 60-mile-per-hour winds. And another strong system here off the coast of New Zealand as well. Anyway, that's nullschool.net. We're looking at surface winds. Again, there are the jet streams. Continuing on, here are pressure cells. It's windy.com, and we're going to advance this to the GFS forecast. There's the GFS forecast for pressure tomorrow at noon Eastern Time. Here's a real-time lightning map. I like to use lightningmaps.org for my real-time lightning maps. And we see some lightning in the Gulf of Mexico and off the east coast of the U.S. I don't see any terrestrial lightning right now. Here's a U.S. Doppler radar map. And the rain is moving out of the mid-Atlantic states here. Some snow in North Dakota, Montana, and Wyoming. Here's what's going on in the cloud layer. It's too dark to see the clouds. We use the NASA GOES shortwave radiation map, 3.9 nanometers. And here's the water vapor, and you can see this dry mass of air slowly making its way to the east. And again, here's the cloud layer. And there's the water vapor. And that's today's meteorology segment. Thanks to our Twitch viewers. It's time to say goodbye to Twitch. Twitch viewers, don't forget to check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/smAsho, where our main content is located. And let's continue on with bonus features. Now, the SDO site is actually down, last I checked. So we're going to show you imagery of the sun and hydrogen alpha here. Here is the latest imagery from Udaipur, India. And I would note massive filaments all around the solar limb. Likelihood of coronal mass ejection still quite high. And we'll see if Sunspot 2815 gets named or not today. I would invite all of our viewers to check out our own website, smashomash.com. And if you click on the SMASho merch link, you'll find our merch. If you click on the forum link, you'll find our forum. You want to hear about our mission? Let me read our mission for you. Our mission is to assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics. Also, to raise the awareness of the general public of the relationship between space weather and Earth effects. To connect and consult with media organizations to multiply our reach, hence videos like this one, to demonstrate cutting-edge proof-of-concept solutions to problems, to publish scientific papers in a multidisciplinary manner, including but not limited to sciences like spectroscopy, chemistry, astrophysics, health, wellness, longevity, cosmology, biology, magnetohydrodynamics, geology, etc., to assist mankind by advancing the study of predictive phenomena in order to optimize value, reduce risk and liability, and save lives and resources, and adapt no matter what the adversity is. And to not be ossified in our beliefs, and to treat those who are with love, respect, and inclusion to the scientific discussion, as science is being rewritten all the time before your very eyes. Today's featured product is, and you can find this at the Smash merch shop, by the way. What the heck is going on? I've got more tabs open than I'd like. If you click on SMASho merch, you'll be linked to the Redbubble shop. Today's featured product is the Hell Dimension of the Year baseball 3/4-inch, 3/4 sleeve t-shirt. It's green sleeves. Anyway, the Dimension of Hell was unanimously voted the Dimension of the Year in 2020. Commemorate that year with our Dimension of the Year Hell products. Thanks to the Smash team. Thanks most of all to our patrons, the true source of funding for the content. Please consider becoming a patron if you'd like all the latest updates before anybody else in the world. Patreon.com/smashomash. And we've got some more imagery of the closest star here. Here's a close-up of this incoming coronal hole. as well as the southeasterly limb of the closest star, El Sol. Great view of that coronal hole and that active region, possibly to be named later Sunspot 2815. Great view there from the SDO. Here's another view of the same area in 171 angstroms. I'll let that play through a second time. And that's all she wrote. We're out. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, stare at the sun. Attempt to understand the physics. Don't drink. And if you do, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back. And that covidiously absent from your location.